How's everybody doing today? Shout out to everybody. I was going jumping around to a lot of people are currently on. So it's cool. I'm just gonna do my thing. Give me one in the chat if you can hear me. Give me one in the chat if we can hear me. I'm sure, like I said, a lot of people were going live at this time. I was surprised, but hey, came to do my thing. So once again, happy Friday, everybody. Glad everybody's gonna roll in. Fridge in the house, appreciate you. Appreciate the one. Y'all saw the thumbnail. We're gonna talk about, which is, I thought was not weird. The SEC sues SolarWinds over the massive cyber attack, alleging fraud and weak controls. All right, so long story short, and we're gonna of course get into it, and I'm gonna keep saying this throughout the stream. Shout out to XL Pro for joining me. Is when you talk about GRC, you talk about cybersecurity, you talk red team, blue team, purple team, all that cybersecurity. Appreciate you for the new sub. Here from Mr. I'm not doing Mr. Cooper today. I might touch on that. I might touch on it. I might touch on it at the end. We talk about SolarWinds today, but I might touch on Mr. Cooper. I really wasn't super familiar with Mr. Cooper. It was on bleeping mortgage insurance. Everybody's getting hit. I probably do a separate just on demand video, but we could definitely touch on Mr. Cooper at the end. But once again, we talking about SEC sues SolarWinds over massive cyber attack alleging fraud and weak controls. And really, when you talk about cybersecurity, once again, red team, blue team, IAM, SIM, um, GRC, all that stuff, that's so you would have do care, not be negligent, so you wouldn't get sued by the government, right? A lot of people know I do federal work. This is the worst case scenario is when you get hacked or your security controls are so weak, the government sues you, right? So, and we're gonna go through it. We're gonna look at this quick video. Then we're gonna actually look at the court case. They had email messages. It looked like they had some voicemail. We talked about Caesar and DJ Envy. When the feds roll up and start taking your phone, taking your taking your emails, telling your jobs to do e-discovery, and they want all that information, right? So um, retention, that's one thing we don't talk a lot about here, but when you work for government entities and large companies, they tell you the C-suite, you need to save their emails for 5, 6, and 7 years if it's related to corporate business, right? So that's kind of the caveat. But so you need to understand when you send stuff on email and you text and if you're talking about it. If the government comes in with a search warrant, right, they're getting that information. So once again, if you have weak security, you can be sued by the SEC. FERPA if you're education. I do IRS stuff, so the IRS can sue you. Um, feds, just so many government agencies can officially sue you, even if you're a private entity business, because you're doing stuff that reports to the feds. So that's what we're going to dig into today. We're going to talk about the lawsuit. They're talking about what they were negligent in and what they didn't get done, right? So when you talk about cybersecurity, when you talk about due diligence and negligence, we talked about talking to lawyers all the time. This is the management side. This is you working with legal, right? So you don't end up in this situation. So let's listen to the quick video. Once again, drop something in the chat, any question or questions, and we can definitely bring those up and touch on those. Let's see where I'm sure this first part gonna be a commercial.
A new warning tonight about the scope of a massive cyber attack.
Already.
America under virtual invasion. That's what Senator Dick.
I can't even hear it. Give me a second. Let's see. Let's hit the button. So let's see. Oh. So if we get some sound going on. I know I listened to this earlier, so let's see.
Rajal Alma to be like
Where's
this.
my sound?
Let me show you our culture.
This is in our blood, you know.
I'm gonna stop sharing that. Let me reshare that. I appreciate you, Cal. I do need the Friday. Let me get back on there. Let me see. I still got you something. Oh, I see why. Give me 1 second. It'd be better if I have it on the right output.
A new warning tonight about the scope of a massive cyber attack.
Already believed to be the largest cyber attack on our government.
America under virtual invasion. That's what Senator Dick Durbin is calling a massive Russian cyber attack.
So long story short, once again, shout out to Casual Economist is when your software is so big about SolarWinds, it's embedded in other software and it's used entirely by the government because they had the blue check mark that said they did a risk assessment. You can use it. It was vetted throughout the government. So then it got vetted throughout the private industry. So when you get vetted, you get used. But when you get hacked, everybody got hacked. They're gonna start naming out big high letter government agencies that got hacked and whacked because even though it's vetted, you still got to make sure it's secure in your data center and how you do that. Let's see that. Mr. Cooper's facility farm. Would that be government? Yeah, that's going to be part of government because FHA is a lot of times paid for by government or a piece of it paid by government. So yeah, that would definitely be in the government realm. Probably public and private partnership to be exact, but they're definitely in the public realm because those first-time home buyers are pushed by the government, and you see Fannie and Freddie ends up buying that stuff, those loans. So yeah, that's definitely controlled by the government. Let's keep going on the video.
On U.S. government agencies.
A so-called supply chain attack against SolarWinds, a company that specialized in network tools, gave hackers access to potentially thousands of targets.
The SolarWinds hack was, and really continues to be one of the biggest espionage campaigns recently discovered.
The truth is this: the Trump administration failed to prioritize cybersecurity.
Microsoft, Google, and other US government entities were compromised by the intrusion. Hackers were able to compromise the Department of Justice.
Those are some of the biggest and best cybersecurity companies in the world. They put their faith in SolarWinds and those are some of the best cybersecurity companies on the planet. Oh yeah, facts. Mandiant had one of the biggest bugs, and their tools got stolen. Their red team tools, and they're probably the best cybersecurity firm on the planet, and their red team tools got on there. Me and Struggle Security chopped it up about that, but yeah, Mandiant's red team tools got stolen. So people were using their tools to attack the government of the United States, but definitely one of the big players in the game.
Justice and the Nuclear Weapons Agency, among others.
Advanced attacker we believe to be the Russians. All evidence points to one intelligence service or another in Russia, although there's some debate about exactly which one. Compromised SolarWinds.
The hack so far seems limited to unclassified systems, but the scope of it is massive. Around 18,000 customers were exposed to the malicious code.
What happened is that the hack infiltrated their build process, which pushes out updates to all of our customers.
How were hackers able to...
See, I have to stop right there. Your build process is when you write code and it gets pushed out to other people because they're using your SaaS or your API or your web product. Since that gets pushed to all those customers, it's pre-built in there. So if it's pre-built, it's not on site with your current firm or if you're a consultant. So that's why, and I did a video about that yesterday, procurement, third-party risk. How do you go through and look at software to check out its riskiness? How do you vet it to make sure you can run inside your organization? What data are you putting in it for data classification? All that's part of procurement, and part of procurement is doing a cyber risk analysis of any software that you're going to run on your network before you run it to make sure it's secure. And the other part of that is you need to be running incident response in case you get hacked like SolarWinds. What's the play? Can you rip it out your network? Can you block it? What are we gonna do if we get hit? Right? You don't want to be figuring it out on the fly. You already want to know how to already have ran an incident response, so you know what to do if that particular vendor got hacked.
To compromise so many key U.S. companies and governmental agencies, and how can the U.S. prevent this from happening again? The SolarWinds hack was what is known as a supply chain attack.
What's unique about this, or special about this particular intrusion, is that they used the access that they got by compromising SolarWinds itself to insert malware into the build process. This then allowed them to target SolarWinds customers that deployed this backdoored update.
They pushed this update out, which allowed them to essentially put malicious code on any customer of SolarWinds that had the Orion platform in place, and then have access to their infrastructure. Some of the companies that were involved: Microsoft, Cisco, Intel, a lot of Department of Defense type organizations, federal government installations, big companies that were impacted by this.
These updates were signed off on by the original vendor, and there was no reason to suspect that they were compromised or a threat to other systems. And the intrusion was uncovered by the cybersecurity company FireEye. The reaction to the hack by
FireEye is Mandiant for the chat. FireEye was owned by Mandiant for forever. Then they split, but
members of the U.S. government, when it was revealed to the public, was stark.
When Moonlight Maze, a quite comparable Russian intrusion set or campaign, was discovered in the late 1990s, the same thing happened. People called it cyber war, an attack against the United States, but the same thing was true then that is true today, namely that we're looking at most likely a sophisticated form of intelligence collection, of espionage, not at an attack.
Well, he said it's sophisticated espionage. I still think that's a cyber attack. But real quick is, when you're talking about build process, we talk about DevOps, like he talks about pipeline. How do you control software? How do you build it? How do you vet it? How do you make sure, like he said, if somebody takes over a developer's keyboard or information and inserts something, how do you make sure it's signed by that developer? How do you code scan and malware scan your code as it goes through the build process, right? That's DevSecOps, development security of operations. How do you do that? I got 6 or 7 videos, but that's definitely a big piece of cybersecurity and a very unique and specialized piece, DevSecOps. How do you make sure the development process is so you don't get stuff injected in espionage by foreign government, right? Once again, that's DevSecOps.
FireEye, the cybersecurity company that discovered the hack, only found out because it too was a victim of the SolarWinds intrusion.
It was kind of by happenstance or mistake. And so what had happened is FireEye leverages something called multi-factor authentication or two-factor authentication. And one of the users inside of FireEye got a request to reset their multi-factor authentication, which they had not done. And so really good. This is where education awareness and employee awareness really comes into play here. Without that, FireEye may have not discovered this breach in the first place, and the attackers may still have access to all of these systems. We would never know about it.
They suspect the breach went undetected for something like 8 months.
U.S. security officials are just beginning to discover how widespread the intrusion is, acknowledging that it targeted at least the Treasury, Commerce, State, and Homeland Security departments and may have hit the Pentagon.
What the retaliation is going to be, and I think it ought to be whatever we assess the cost we have incurred to be, plus.
So firms like FireEye and Symantec, right, they are in the job of defense. And to defend in this world, which is very much kind of based on open source information sharing and communities of practice, you need to be able to get that information out there as soon as possible. So I think FireEye absolutely did the right thing, because many of not only their customers, but civilian firms and civil society around the world were exposed to this threat.
No, they definitely did the right thing. I think they were pretty transparent. Mandiant was pretty transparent when they got hacked, and I think that helps. Let me read Aiken's quick question while he's in there. Are most U.S. small businesses too small for cyber criminals to try to hack? And is there a financial threshold where the government would not care if your SMB got hacked due to weak controls and cyber hygiene? the government doesn't care, but if you go through, Indiana's one of them, in a lot of states, the state general attorneys are starting to care. Because if you start hacking small businesses in certain states, they're taking those people's PIs and selling them. So I think the governors want to look good from a state level. The reason why is a quick story. In probably 2005, that's before the cloud got started, I had 4 servers in a bedroom. I had Oracle on one, Apache, Tomcat. I was doing some Java development. I was learning infrastructure in my bedroom. I have a small network. I got hacked by somebody in France. I couldn't figure out what's going on. I was working at DOD time, and this guy named Ty, I called him Tig. I said, can you come through? Long story short, he looks at it, he goes, you've been hacked by France. I said, why? He goes, look, they changed your language to France so he could look at it. And the question he asked, I said, why would they hack me? He go, you're practicing your stuff. They're practicing on you. Before I can hack the government, before I can hack China, before I can hack the big bank, I got to hack small people so I can get better, right? So they're working on that crap by hacking on small clients and small people, Aiken. That's how you know you're getting better. You're just not going to wake up one day and attack the United States government or DOD, Aiken. You got to practice. So a lot of times those companies practice on SMBs. The sad part on it, small hospitals are getting taken out the box. And 2 is they paying like 2 or 3. They're not small, but they're small from an infrastructure and cybersecurity. So if you look, small hospitals are getting taken out the box. So those guys are practicing on those smaller adversaries to get ready for the big adversary, right? You just don't start in the game doing 1,000 servers on AWS. You got to build up to that, Aiken. So you get a lot of small people, small time, because they're practicing. Now you're not dropping your 0 days on them, but you're doing phishing. You're doing, and 2 is script kiddies or written stuff from the bigger hackers. You can do ransomware as a service, malware as a service. You can run all that now, Aiken. So those guys are practicing on a small stuff before you go to a state or before you go to DOD and get those big attacks. So I think that from a small company perspective, I think that's what the government's worrying about. So that's why they want you to report it, because if a lot of small people are getting hacked, that lets them know they're trying to get ready for something big. So I think that's where there's the smaller businesses come to play. And I think the states, all the states are locally taking care of that. Then they're reporting that up to Department of Homeland Security through the states to figure out if it's a bigger attack or if they think it's some big nation state about to take us out.
Definitely were some failings in, that security around the build process. We don't like to victim blame during these kind of things, but we do look for evidence of other security best practices not being followed that we can see externally.
Knowing who was behind the hack is necessary for the US government to react appropriately to the action. Initially, the US government said that the attack was likely attributed to Russia.
Attribution has happened in this space also for about 20 years. So we have a rich universe of case studies and details on how to do attribution and how to do it well. We also know that the US government and US intelligence community has some of the most formidable attribution capabilities of any intelligence agency. So they would be able to look at forensic details at, for example, infrastructure, as it's called in the jargon, that is computers that were used by
the infrastructure, TTPs, right? If you go to MITRE, they have these things called TTPs. That's the signature of a nation state when they hack you. They're going to do certain movements and certain attacks, like they might attack your AD, then pivot over to your printer, then change your domain passwords, right? So there's certain signatures by certain national governments. That's how they can tell. Attribution is those fingerprints, so I can tell you who I think attacked you. Is that Russia, Israel, us, right? We be attacking people too. The United States government's got their hands dirty. They're not. We're attacking people that's attacking us. So we got certain things that the NSA, right? Those type of guys use to attack foreign government. So 8317 had a good question. Is there a framework or regulation that actually makes them liable, since they aren't the data custodians necessarily more likely supply chain compromise? I just did a video. Look on there. It's called procurement. I just talk about that. And part of procurement, when you buy software, it's called a DPA, data process agreement. That's a contract between me and the vendor. And inside that contract, I used to be on calls with a lot of lawyers. They talk about if you get hacked, what's your liability to us if you get us hacked and it's not our fault? We talk about super caps. That's going to be 5 times the revenue of that service. That could be $100 million. I've seen it where they talk about our super caps $100 million. If you get us hacked, right? So the offset is like you. If you run into a Bentley, right, you got car insurance, right? So they have cyber insurance for that $100 million. So if they get us hacked, there's cyber insurance, right? If they do basic stuff like your car, if you're not negligible, you have car insurance up to $100,000. But if you hit a McLaren Rolls Royce, right, that's $2 million. So if you don't have an umbrella policy, you short, right? So what's the gap? What's the liability, right? So that's what that DPA does, 317. Let me know if that makes sense. So your agreement with your third party should talk about, once again, what's your liability? What's your termination for your convenience? What's your super cap? What's your liability? If you think you got hacked, you need to let me know within 24 hours. And in that DPA, which is a contract, there should be security exhibits. Once again, security, what do I expect you to do in your third-party insurance to make sure you're doing due care and you're not negligible? But if you're a little bored, 8317, I just did a procurement one live. I think I did it 2 days ago, 3 days ago. I walked through those steps of when you buy software. And part of that is the DPA, which a lot of people don't talk about, 8317. That's on a whole nother level when you get legal, but legally, you're supposed to make sure you have security exhibits in there and the caps and the liabilities that you're talking about in there to make sure you're covered if you got hacked.
A certain adversary to breach the target, but really sometimes they would even have, the US government would even have intercepts of adversaries talking about an operation, you know, by text or by phone or even in some cases in person. So that, of course, makes attribution possible at a very high confidence level. But really important to note here is we have dozens, more than 3 dozen cases of high quality, detailed attribution done by the US government.
One big question is, how do you deter a country like Russia or North Korea from pursuing a hack like SolarWinds?
And we've seen...
Did you pick that up? He said, by us. He said at least 12 by the United States. He sound French. He sound like he was hating on us a little bit. But now, shout out. We be doing stuff too. Shout out to SL. Can I get my likes up? Get my likes up. I don't know why I like say that. Get my likes up. Shout out to everybody for joining me. I appreciate that. Let's see what my man 8317 said. That makes sense. I've been learning. There's so many. Facts agreement outside. SLA, man. Oh, yeah. And I'm going to do a video on that. I think I got a video where I talk about MSA, Masters of Service Agreements, that flow down to a statement of work. Like you said, SL agreements. Now they got DPAs, which are data processing agreements. So yeah, 8317. My last job, that's all I did is did RFPs and RFI and talk about those contracts with legal and make sure the cybersecurity exhibits were tight. If we were doing HIPAA, high trust, or if it was our paper or their paper, 8317, that's a job into itself. And a lot of big companies just have it's like cybersecurity lawyers, but you need a cybersecurity SME. They handle the legal part, once again, which is the indemnification, super caps, what you're responsible for when you get hacked, gross negligence. I've seen how that. So that's legal, but in part of that is the cyber part. What are you doing for high trust? What are you doing for NIST? What controls do they have? I've actually went on site and looked at a company's SSP because they didn't want me to take it and read it and put highlights on stuff I thought was faulty to make sure we can sign an MSA. Because when you start talking about $100 million worth of liabilities, they want to make sure those contracts are tight. If we're going to mess up and get sued for $100 million, we got to make sure that language is tight.
Decades of cyber attacks without any meaningful U.S. government response. That's improving, but so in that sense, people are right. Deterrence does not work to stop cyber intelligence activity. However, deterrence actually shapes the way that intelligence and cyber operations are conducted. If you are a nation state looking at trying to do something to the United States, you can decide to use your military forces or you can decide to do a cyber intrusion. Well, you're not going to attack the United States because the United States military is probably going to impose tremendous punishment. So instead you start looking at cyber tools That doesn't mean that cyber tools are particularly effective. It may be the only thing you have left. It may be the second best option.
The repercussions of the SolarWinds hack are still being unraveled. As the Biden administration settles in, it will have to contend with the aftermath of this hack and also work to prevent security lapses that can endanger national security in the future.
We reserve the right to respond at a time and a manner of our choosing to any...
I got to jump in on that. Let's be very clear what she said. The respondings of our choice and our choosing, aka you can hit us with your cyber nerds you want. We putting boots on the ground. So if your nerds be our nerds, we coming with boots on the ground. We dropping tanks. We sending Navy carriers to come and get you. The United States about this life. You're just not gonna let your nerds beat up on our nerds. That's our choosing. So if you come over and shut off our electricity, jump in our nuclear, do that if you want. We sending missiles. So be very clear what she just said. Of our choosing, right? She did it politically, aka we putting boots on the ground. So if you beat us up cyber too bad and we're not happy, we put boots on the ground. Oh no, shout out to 8317. That the LLC cyber warriors don't mention all this red tape, and I'll stick to my W2 life. A lot of them don't understand that. And I do this, shout out to Scott. Facts. The part I think, and I probably got 3% in 10 companies, people reach out to me because they have to answer these questions when they do government work or trying to get Fed work. So a lot of times they don't have money, so I take 3% of their companies. But A317, I have an attorney on deck, so they sign waivers saying, hey, I'm helping your company, but you don't have money or really to afford the tools. I'm giving you compliance work. These are some security holes you need to fix. So if I personally get sued, you got to cover me, right? Because but two is I take percentages. I need to stop that because 3% of 10 companies that make zero profit is what, people? Zero, right? But a lot of people don't understand that, 317. But yeah, so a lot of people could physically get themselves sued, right? The sad part about it is a lot of guys ain't making money like that anyway. Let's be honest, 317. So they're trying to get to the bag by doing that type of work. So you got to make sure your stuff is good. Shout out to AI and ME in the house. Drones don't be missed. Facts. So like you said, we can put boots on the ground. We can send drones, but we are going to actually, like she said, we're going to hit you with I'm going to rewind it a little bit. Our choosing mean, once again, we can hit you with the drones. We can hit you with boots on the ground. We got carriers. We can hit you with missiles from the middle of the ocean. So just because you do your cyber, but don't be mistaken. The first attack we do on countries, and you can see in Ukraine, Russia was going there, wiping out their electricity, wiping out their hospital. They did a cyber attack, right? That was the first piece. So don't be mistaken. Shout out to kids. So yeah, let's hit that back 10 and keep it rolling. We're gonna hit it back 10 and
of this hack and also work to prevent security lapses that can endanger national security in the future.
We reserve the right to respond at a time and a manner of our choosing to any cyber attack.
A SolarWinds spokesperson noted, quote, "We are solely focused on helping the industry and our customers understand and mitigate this attack and have taken a number of steps to further secure our network and products."
There needs to be laws in place and direct ramifications regardless of who's in office. To say, listen, if there's a cyber attack that's targeting our private sector, ransomware, etc., and it's originating from a specific country, that country is going to be held liable from a sanctions perspective, potentially kinetic, warfare. Who knows? Whatever that ends up being, holding these countries accountable for ramifications really needs to be the wave of the future, and it's not something that we're discussing yet, which is unfortunate.
President-elect Biden called this a cyber assault, and Senator Dick Durbin talked about it as a virtual declaration of war. I think that this kind of rhetoric is not helpful. This kind of rhetoric talks about this.
He doesn't like the rhetoric. I don't like that word. But now, shout out to him. But we got to figure out what we want to do as a nation. When somebody punches us in the nose, cyber, when somebody kick dirt in our face, like you said, we're going to attack you with what our choice, right? What we want to do, right? Like drones, cyber attack. They got malware that'll destroy your computers, right? Those wiper malware they actually destroy your computer. So we got a lot of things in our arsenal.
As if this was some kind of military assault. Senator Mitt Romney even talked about this as being the equivalent of Russian bombers flying over the United States. States. And I don't think that's accurate at all. This is the equivalent of the Russians or the Americans or the Chinese or the British doing what great powers have been doing for hundreds of years, which is recruiting sources in their rivals and in their allies sometimes to try and better understand what's going on.
So how can you deter clandestine intelligence collection? And the answer is, well, if you expose it, certainly you raise the cost for the adversary, but they won't stop doing it. They will only try to be a little more disciplined and maybe have better operational security next time around. So this is really about raising the costs and making life and work a little harder for advanced adversaries, not about deterrence, really. Meaning, not about stopping this altogether.
So I thought that was interesting. So they hit on a lot of stuff in there, right? So we're going to actually look at the case. This is going to be my TLA, the lead attorney. We're going to actually look at the court case and read through it. Right? Politician, cybersecurity, what could go wrong? That's really the balance too. The sad part about it's not sad is most of those politicians really don't understand it, right? They got working groups and they hire the best colleges. They do funding so they can try to get a better handle on understanding that and what does that look like. North Korea, South Korea, they get a lot of GDP from robbing the United States, right? When you can steal $100 million in ransomware, $5 or $10 million from a small nation, you giving that to actually fund your government. So a lot of those adversaries stay in Russia because they know Russia's not going to do anything unless they attack Russia, right? So what is our and Biden did that. What's our executive order? What's the strategies, the strategic planning from the White House government on down? How do we handle those type of attacks? So that's once again interesting too. So is that the core? Yeah, that's it. Make that a little bigger. So once again, I might play that at the end though. I really enjoyed that CNBC. But so this is what we're looking at, right? The government, the SEC, Security and Exchange Commission, actually sued SolarWinds, right? So we're gonna find out if there's a dollar amount in there, but like me and 8317 was talking about. Do you have cyber insurance? Were there any agreements with you and a third party, right, that said if you got them hacked, your super cap was 33 million, 10 million, 20 million dollars? Can they cap this, or can the government just sue them for $100 million? Can the government actually make them go out of business? Right? So we're going to see what the government's position is in this court case. It's pretty long, so hang in there. If you want to drop off, come back. We can see that too. Let's see what my man said. Yep, I did that one yesterday. AI and ME. I did the AI one yesterday. Talked about what they had. What was that? 2 days ago. I can't remember. I did it 2 days ago or yesterday. I'm so tired. But yeah, so we, like you said, I did the executive order in AI, talking about the framework. And then there too, we highlighted some definitely money-making spots where the government's going to start funding certain industries. It's going to start funding certain colleges, because a lot of times college does the original research, then they sell it off to one of the big companies, because just because you discover, you can't fund it, right? You need salespeople, you need to be able to scale up, you need cloud infrastructure. So a lot of times they fund the university, then the university sells it out, and they got guys, especially Stanford. Zuckerberg went to Stanford, a lot of those companies, Yale, so they got their own funds. So they're backers and guys that make money. They'll come back and give that startup funding, or they might just buy it. When I went out, I did a little work in Silicon Valley. Oh God, that's probably 12 years ago. There were so many millionaires because they had companies that were so small, but they were decent. But the big companies wanted that particular service, or they had some that they could add to their database or their SaaS. So they bought the company for $10 million and nobody ever heard of it. Right. So let's dig into SolarWinds. We probably flow through it because it's pretty long. But let's hit it. Plaintiff, SEC against SolarWinds, Timothy G. Brown, collectively defending it. From at least 2018 to 2021, Defendants SolarWinds and then Vice President of Security Architecture Brown defrauded SolarWinds investors and customers through misstatements, omissions, and schemes that conceal both the companies. I thought this was interesting. Companies' poor cybersecurity practices and its heightened increase in cybersecurity risk. SolarWinds' public statement about its cybersecurity practice risk painted a starkly different pictures from internal discussions and assessments about company security policies, violations, vulnerabilities, cybersecurity. Illustratively, in 2018, the same month SolarWinds conducted its initial public offering through a registration statement that only generically and hypothetically cyber risk disclosure. Brown wrote in an internal presentation that SolarWinds' current state of security leaves us at a very vulnerable state for our critical assets. So he said in an internal statement that their cybersecurity sucked. It was minimal. So now when you get hacked and people start digging up documents, you and a company open up to get sued by the SEC. So when you work for very big companies, and I got to say this appropriately, is they tell you what not to put in email. They tell you what not to text people. Because if you ever summon, they're going to pull your text. It's called e-discovery. They're going to pull everything out of Teams, all those things. So you need to be very careful, especially when you're in management, what you say. There's certain things, I'm just paranoid. I walk in people's office before I say it, right? So once again, he put up a presentation. Now they pulling it out. They pulling it back up, saying, hey, you said this. What's going on? So now you looking bad, right? The true state of SolarWinds cyber practice control and risk ultimately came to light following a massive attack, which exploited some of SolarWinds' poor cybersecurity practices, which impacted thousands of SolarWinds customers. That attack, termed Sunburst, compromised SolarWinds' Orion software platform, a flagship product that the company considered to be the crown jewels asset and accounted for 45% of its revenue in 2020. So your best product had poor cybersecurity in it, right? But let's be real, and I said this on a lot of things. People don't care about cybersecurity when you first come out. They care about features. The only time you care about cybersecurity is when you get hacked, right? So when they got hacked, now we talking about cybersecurity, but they were selling those features. We got the crown jewel. We got 45%. We publicly traded. That's coming up next. Everybody in the leadership and everybody, the first 100 people, we about to cash out. Everybody gonna be a million deep, gonna be the poorest person because we got stock options. So we got to get this. We can't be telling people we suck in security, and we got to get these stock options. SolarWinds public traded company provides software to thousands of companies and many government agencies uses to manage their information technology infrastructure. For example, monitoring activity on network servers. SolarWinds and or Brown made materially false and misleading statements and on omissions related to SolarWinds cybersecurity risk, practicing at least 3 types of public disclosures. Statement that purported to describe cybersecurity practices and policies, security statement posted on the company's website. They have these forms of S1 and S8 registration periodically filed with the SC and relevant thing. Form 8K, every quarter you got to do your 8K regarding the massive Sunburst cybersecurity incident that impacted SolarWinds platform. So you got to remember, which is cool, most of those guys get paid on stock options. So his career is over with. Facts, Justin, facts. So we're not gonna mess up the stock options, right? Two, if I'm a programmer and you gave me, you paying me okay, but I got 10,000 shares and we about to go public at $50, $60 a share, man, I'm done. I'm cashing out. But I can't be talking about, our cybersecurity suck. I can't say that in our standard 8K, right? So that's the issue, right? That's the nuance where the SEC was like, you talk too much, got you. The security statement was materially misleading because it touted the company's supposedly strong cybersecurity. For example, the statement asserted SolarWinds created the software products we just talked about in there, secure development lifecycle that follows standard security practices, vulnerability testing, regression testing, penetration testing, product security assessment, and the security statement claimed that SolarWinds password policy covered all applicable information system, application, and database, and reinforced the use of complex password. Also, it stated that SolarWinds had access control of the sensitive data in our database system and environments that are set on a need-to-know basis / least privileges necessary basis. All those statements were materially false, right? And you put them in AK and you put them on internal documentation, right? Especially internally, you got to be careful. But once again, even with security companies, features are what people pay for. Once again, we got these stock options. We public, we trying to get this stock up so we can all cash out, right? So, and two is when you buying a company or you're taking a company's software internally, you got to do a risk assessment. So, and two, you could do a risk assessment and they could fool you, right? That they could fool you in a risk assessment. They can answer your questions wrongly on purpose. It could be false and misleading. I've actually caught vendors making stuff up when we did security reviews and security checks, right? Shout out to Alonzo. Go subscribe to him. Definitely on the grind. Go check out AI and me. Glad y'all can join me. So once again, the other guy talked about that. DevSecOps, development security operations. How do you review code? He listed in there. How do you scan it? How do you, all those things he listed, they should be done in your developer's pipeline. Are you doing that? And it sounded like SolarWinds said, oh, yeah, we're doing all of that. And that was misleading and categorically false, right? Misleading security statement, conceal the company's non-poor cybersecurity practice through relevant period. This poor cybersecurity practice included SolarWinds' failure to consistently maintain a secure development lifestyle for software developed and provided to thousands of customers, failure to enforce the use of strong password on all systems, failure to remedy access control problems that persisted for years. SolarWinds SEC filings similarly concealed the company's poor cybersecurity practices. They contain general high-level risk disclosures, lump cybersecurity in a list, risk alongside natural disasters, fire, power loss, telecommunications failures, and employees theft or misuse. The cybersecurity risk disclosures were generic and hypothetical and allow for negative consequences if we sustain system failure, cyber attacks against our system or against our products, and other data security incidents or breaches. This disclosure failed to address known risks. For example, it warned of the inability to defend against anticipated techniques, but failed to disclose the SolarWinds had already determined that it's not taking adequate steps to protect against anticipated and known risks, excluding failure to follow steps along the security statement, general warnings when they were repeatedly verbatim in each relevant filing. Despite both the ongoing problems and increased red flags in 2020, SolarWinds were not only being specifically targeted for cyber attack, but the attackers had already gotten in. So you named some of the risks and you didn't do anything to help your company harden those risks, fix those vulnerabilities, do mitigated controls, or whatever that was. And two, it sounds like they knew what some of those were. So if you knew what they were and you didn't fix them in a timely manner, that's negligent. That's how you get sued by the SEC, right? So when you talk to your boss, when we talk to our bosses, talk to the board of directors, this is the kind of things that get cybersecurity money, because if you don't do it right or you're negligent, you could be sued by the SEC, and that's not pretty, right? I'm hoping they're going to touch on the fines. I'm not going to read all of this. This is 68 pages. We probably go 15 deep, then just kind of wrap it up. That's kind of the high level. But once again, that's why we do cybersecurity, because you don't want to be sued by a federal three-letter agency. And that's why security people get paid what they get paid, right? In around the cyber time, SolarWinds was making these material misleading public statements. Brown and other SolarWinds employees knew that SolarWinds had seriously cybersecurity deficiencies. Internal emails, messages, documents describe numerous known material cybersecurity. That's a key word, is legal. Material means big, right? Big vulnerabilities, probably high vulnerabilities. If they talk about material, that's a big time legal term, right? Control issues, vulnerabilities. The internal statement dramatically contradicts SolarWinds public disclosures related to cybersecurity practices. Risk controls, vulnerability, and among these internal statements are Brown's assessments that the company's critical assets were very vulnerable in examples such as, and that's why I like this document, they're digging in some of the stuff they're negligent and what they knew was broken and what they knew they were going to get fixed, right? And two is you need to read this because when I read this, I'm going to type this up and I'm going to go back to work and say, are we doing all these things? Is our development team, are we good with these? Right? Some of these I'm sure I can say, okay, yep, I know. I'm sure there's a few things that I'm like, I don't even know what that is. I'm going to have to research, right? Because remember what the other video said. This was an attack by a high-level Russian operative group. They doing some stuff people not aware of yet, I'm sure. They got vulnerabilities in some other programs that, besides SolarWinds, that let them attack SolarWinds to get in their pipeline, right? So that's why you read stuff like this so you can figure out. We call it, my Xbox, I call hot wash. I call it postmortems. So what things got them hacked, and are we covered? And if not, do we need more budget so we can get covered? So we're going to hit some of those, and let's see if there was something novel in there, something new we haven't seen, or was SolarWinds just poor and they wasn't doing basic, I hate the word, basic security hygiene and left them open. So let's keep rolling. Let's keep reading and see where we at. So in around the time SolarWinds making this material misleading statement, Brown and other SolarWinds employees knew they had serious cybersecurity deficiencies, internal emails. What? Oh, we did that. Let's read A. As January 2018 email to senior manager bluntly admitted that the security statement, security development lifecycle, this is part of DevSecOps section, was false and described a simple scheme by which, rather than amend the security statement to make it accurate, SolarWinds would conceal the present falsity of the representation and work making them true eventually. I've gotten feedback, and we do not do some of these things that are indicated in our security statement in the system development lifecycle section. I want to make sure that you all have an answer to this. The simple response is there's improvement needed to be able to meet the security expectations of the system security lifecycle. We're working with teams throughout 2018 to begin incorporating this in the SDLC. In 2018, engineering, the network engineering D Squared identifies security gaps related to SolarWinds remote access virtual private network that allow access from devices not managed by SolarWinds. Hold on, I can't help but laugh. Engineering D warned that this setup was not very secure. And later explained someone exploiting vulnerability can basically do whatever without us detecting it until it's too late, which could lead to major reputation and financial loss. So once again, I guess anybody can VPN into their system. Granted, you have to do a username and password probably. So maybe they were up in the brief forest. Let's keep reading and see where they were lacking. August 2019, presentation access and privileges, critical system data is inappropriate. Another significant deficiencies in access control. SolarWinds flagship Orion software platform was still not developed under an SDS process. SolarWinds employees noted that this was a problem. 2020, we have an SDL process in force for Orion's improvement program? If the SDL is not enforced for OLP, we should do it ASAP and consider additional action to make sure the OLP is very well protected. As employees surmised, the OLP was not in fact covered by the SDL in 2020, meaning they had very few DevOps and definitely no DevSecOps. It was super small. In 2020 presentation, Brown warned that threat actors familiar with the critical SolarWinds software platform, knowing that threat actors know how to deploy software, shut off backups, and etc. Email in 2022 to Brown, a member of the engineering team, described being spooked by the activity of a SolarWinds customer. Brown agreed that incident was very concerning. Continue, as you guys know, our backends are not that resilient. We should definitely make them better. 2020 risk assessment form flagged by Brown and others the risk of legacy issues in our Orion platform and warned the volume of security issues being identified over the last month have outstripped the capacity of engineering team to solve them. Right. So that's that's very concerning. The cool part about that, I wouldn't say cool, Buzz, they do have some risk assessment. They do understand they have risk and they're not fixing it. They do understand they don't have the capacity to fix them. As much money that was made, I think they should have brought in consultants for some of the bigger developers out there, just and have them help them to lock those down and fix them. The other part of that for programmers or people in there, it's called legacy tech debt. When you use old technology, after a while, it's so heavy and it's such debt, it's hard to make new changes to it. It's hard to add new software, new services, new cloud services because you have super old tech debt. So a lot of times you got to get it. We call it modernization. You got to make it modern so you can put cybersecurity on top of it, right? So I think that was some of their problems that they were struggling with. Of 2020, SolarWinds information security employee sent the instant message to the senior InfoSec manager E with the link to the list of vulnerabilities in the Ryan platform. These products are riddled and obviously have been for many years. The same month, SolarWinds network engineer complained, we found more vulnerabilities than we fixed. And by fix, this often means just a temporary fix. But the problem is still there and it's huge. I have no idea what we can do about it. Even if we started to hire like crazy, which we most likely not, it will still take years. Can't really figure out how to un-F this situation. Not good. Right. So he's telling you, and I've seen stuff like that. How do you, we call it eat the elephant, right? You got so many vulnerabilities. Your patching is breaking other stuff. You're patching on a patch and sucking. So what's the play for that? And the thing people don't want to do is you got to strip it to the studs and rebuild it. That's going to cost a lot of money. It's going to cost some expertise. You're going to have to bring in some new stuff. You got modernizing it, Kubernetes or Docker, get into the cloud. So they're responsible for the infrastructure upgrades and not you. But a lot of times you can't put your native code in the cloud because it won't run, right? Because it's not cloud native or cloud ready. So you got to get it there so you can get to the cloud, but you got to strip it. We call it strip it down to the stuff. So when I was a developer and I'm interviewing, what we did, the tech debt, the slow period was around Christmas. We took 3 months and we worked on tech debt. What's old? What's brittle? What's brittle? Brittle meaning every time somebody changes it, it breaks something else. What do we need to do to get our base infrastructure up to a certain level? And there's some common service functions that all the other modules use. So you need to make sure that's solid because you want to build on a solid foundation. But that takes money, takes time. So you run some releases. So we try to do that in a slow period to say, hey, so we won't be riddled with vulnerabilities, but management's got to sign off on that and willing to pay for that because that costs. That debt costs. And a lot of times is you can't bill that to the customer because that's your debt as a company. Even though Brown and or other SolarWinds employees and executives knew about these risks, vulnerabilities, and attacks against SolarWinds products, risk disclosure did not disclose them in any way, either individually or by disclosing increased risks they collectively pose to SolarWinds. To be clear, SolarWinds poor controls, defended false and misleading statements, omission and other misconducts described in the complaints would have violated federal security laws, even if SolarWinds had not experienced a major targeted cyber attack. But those violations became painfully clear when SolarWinds experienced precisely such an attack. So they were doing false and misleading stuff. It sounded like their software is used in the government. There's government tests for NIST. They should have said they passed. Some people were deploying it in the cloud, so all this stuff has to be FedRAMP approved. The problem is since they're a third party, the government agency is responsible for that risk assessment. And a lot of government agencies aren't good at doing those type of risk assessments. So I think that's where the ball was dropped. So when you have a client such as SolarWinds that big doing that, right, I think you need to have the feds, and they have Booz Allen and all the big four. They need to send those auditors out to those big infrastructure companies like SolarWinds, Mandiant, that are used. AWS and Azure goes to those type of audits to make sure the software is good. Thanks, Doc. Let's see what's up. This is the SEC suing the SolarWinds. We're actually just walking through the actual case just to see some of the things that SolarWinds was negligent on from a cybersecurity perspective. And legally, how do you tie legal with cybersecurity to make sure they're covered, you're indemnified, or you have cyber insurance? So if SolarWinds gets you hacked, your cyber insurance will pay when you start getting sued by your customers for $100 million. So Kyle, that's what we're touching on a little bit today. And two is I did a video on procurement bringing new software in. So SolarWinds will be a new software you bring in. How you do a risk assessment on, how you do DPA from a legal contract. How do you walk through your infrastructure to see how that's going to fit, right? So I did that procurement video about 2 days. But so that's what we're talking to, just walking through the lawsuit, the government suing SolarWinds that caused a major hack. Between 2019, SolarWinds experienced the worst incident in history. Are we giving it the history? I don't know. You up there? I have to think about that. Subburst, the supply chain cyber attack, which exploited some of cybersecurity failings described above, and SolarWinds crown jewel. Two, once again, it was the VPN that was unmanaged devices such as cell phones and laptops that was neither owned or operated by the company. So that is everybody knows I do Fed checks, NIST check. NIST says we don't do BYOD. You can't bring your own device. So we do agency controlled or government owned computers. Inside those government owns, there's keys. So when you do VPN, it's looking for that key on your laptop to know that you are approved to try to connect to that VPN. All right, it's called a client search. So once you click to the corporate VPN, if it doesn't see that client VPN, you won't be able to connect to VPN. Now you can spoof it and do some other things, but it won't be an unmanaged device. So somehow you got to trick it, right? You got to have the key, you got to have the right IP range. We might have our MAC address in, so we're gonna have a few layers that you have to get to before you get to the VPN. And obviously, SolarWinds didn't have any of that, right? So is it possible the threat actors first access SolarWinds system in the earlier time through other means, but the earliest confirmed access was through the VPN vulnerability. All right, so VPN is just one layer of defense, right? It's called defense in depth. So even though you have VPN, if it's on unmanaged devices, it's not much security in that. So that's a big one, all right? Users access to threat actors. User access to threat actors inserted malicious code into 3 software builds. SolarWinds delivered the compromised products to more than 18,000 customers across the globe. Malicious code provided the threat actors with the ability to access the system of these compromised computers, provided certain other conditions were met, and became known as the Sunburst attack. Right, so we're going to dig into that DevSecOps. So in your development process, what security you have in there. Hopefully part of that would be the VPN, but they didn't set it up right. Right, so let's see. How can I support your channel? There's a little super chat in there if you want to hit the super chat. Or I'm going to do memberships coming up. So I always tell people donate to the barbecue fund if you want. Appreciate you. Shout out to the man, the myth. Shout out to Keep It Techie. Gave me my first interview on YouTube, so I always give him a shout out. Go check out Keep It Techie. A lot of my members came from Keep It Techie. Shout out to him for sharing my stuff. I've always coordinated. If you need he's got a Linux free course, and now he has a MySQL free course. Both of those courses are excellent. I do. Let me look it up. It's let me look it up real quick. So yeah, go check out Keep It Techie. Go check out his courses. I'm kind of come up with my courses to get there. So what is my Cash App is, which I should have it memorized. I don't Cash App myself. I'll put it in the chat. I appreciate you. So yeah, so back again, the gist of this at a high level is if your cybersecurity is bad, you can get sued by the SEC and you can get shut down. I appreciate you. There it is, indie black programmer. I need to get a new one. That was one of my first, but I appreciate you, Cal. So yeah, go check it out. But when we talk about cybersecurity, we talking about doing it right or doing it wrong. When you're doing it this bad and your company's that big, you put the whole United States at risk because it was 18,000 customers that they got. All of them 18,000 get hacked, but all of them had the malware in there with the open doors to get them attacked by Russia, a foreign adversary, right? So a lot of times when you think you want to do a big act, you think you want to take, you could get sued, right? Shortly after that, cybersecurity firm B, SolarWinds, including Brown, recognized similarities between that attack and attack on the United States government A. But when the personnel cybersecurity firm B asked SolarWinds employee their perceived similar activities, employee F falsely told the firm they had not. Wasn't us. And then a message a colleague, well, I just lied. So you know you about to get sued. So even if you lie, don't text nobody, man. Don't call them, man. You gotta go visit them, right? I'm not trying to give y'all any cybersecurity bad advice, but when you get the government of the United States hacked, they pulling all your email, all your text message. You're gonna be like DJ Envy and Caesar. They pulling up on you, pulling up your hardware, getting your personal, getting your corporation hardware. They're going through all of that. They're going through all of that. So yeah, that's my Cash App. If anybody else want to do it, no big problem. PPO going on a diet in 2024 though. I gotta lose some weight. But shout out to the I want to subscribe to Barbecue Fun and waiting on membership right here. I appreciate you. Working on that membership, man. DJ facts. So yeah, so that's what happened to them. They got pulled on like DJ Envy. They were like, I need to see your equipment. I see to put on your text. I think Caesar snitching on him too. These dudes gonna be snitching in a minute. These dudes that you see their emails out there, they snitching in a minute. So, but let's keep going. We ain't gonna go much farther. I think I'm gonna go to 10 and go. In December 2020, a third customer, cybersecurity firm C, discovered that two had become a victim of a cyber attack through the SolarWinds Orion platform. Cybersecurity firm C quickly identified the malicious code in SolarWinds Orion product. On December 12th, the cybersecurity firm C notified SolarWinds CEO of the malicious code and shared the relevant code with Brown in a manner that made the malicious code apparent to the cybersecurity professional. Brown immediately recognized the malicious code identified in cybersecurity firm C was the same vulnerability in the Orion platform that had previously exploited against the United States government agency A and cybersecurity firm B. Right? Once again, they had 18,000 customers. So the Winds filed an 8K at C disclosing that Orion had malicious code that had been inserted by threat actors. The Form 8K was drafted by a group of executives, including Brown, and signed off by SolarWinds CEO. Everybody getting fired with no why. Everybody, no why. Everybody get fired. So when you got your whole chain signing off and somebody pointed out and you lied about it, come on, man. Somebody getting in trouble. The Form 8K was materially misleading. Several respects, including its failure to disclose the vulnerability at issue, has been actively exploited against CyberWinds customers in multiple times over the last 6 months period, including involving U.S. agency A, cybersecurity firm B, and cybersecurity firm C. So you get government agencies hacked and big cybersecurity firms because they directly had the best software on the planet. I was at a couple clients that was using it. We were scrambling trying to figure out what was going on, right? So we would look for, we talk about, like you said, compromise indicators. You got to be logging where your logs were at. that's a GG for the uncool people. Facts. So what is that? Then once again, this is what happens when you're negligent in cybersecurity. We talk about red team, blue team. I was talking about OSINT. We talking about API security, DevSecOps, DevOps, GRC, event monitoring, log monitoring, quantum computing. But if you're negligent, none of it's gonna help, and you're gonna get sued, right? So what gets wrong when your security gets wrong? you get sued by the federal government, right? So let's see, misleading. We talked about that. SolarWinds, Delaware, the defendants. Oh, that's my man Timothy Dunn. Well, cool. He about to retire though. Timothy G, 59, resides in Texas. Was responsible for the overall security program from July 17 to 20. They throwing that dude under the bus. Brown was an officer at SolarWinds, serving as vice president of security and architecture, head of information security. Then he was SolarWinds chief information security officer. His role as vice president of security architect. Brown was responsible. Brown also signed a certification attesting to the adequacy of cybersecurity internal controls. So that's what we ask security leadership when you do security audits and security reviews. They ask high-level rankings officers in your companies, because if that stuff false, you're getting sued. And one company, that dude went to jail for that, right? So when we sign off and say your security program is good, you did all these internal controls, these are the risks, these are your vulnerabilities, these are your poems, we need the CIO, the CISO to sign off on that. Now you could be personally sued if you're negligent. The company's going to be sued and you personally going to be sued, right? Because you signed off on something that you know were patently false. Let's see let's see who else is in there. Other relevant persons and entities. U.S. government agency, federal agencies. They didn't name them though. Look at all these people in there, right? Employee F, customer G, multinational information technology. They had 1,800 customers, right? So this is jurisdiction. Where are they gonna hold it at? The core Securities Exchange, Defendants SolarWinds and Brown. So they named him personally, right? They named the company. And the CISO that signed off and said we were good. So that's why you got to be careful. You think you want to be chief information officer till you end up in court. Shout out to Calvin Henderson. He know the guy. Happy Friday. Raiders is still terrible. My coach ain't looking much better. But when you're a CISO, when you're a CIO, you got to be careful what you signing, because now my man 31. SolarWinds and Brown directly or indirectly, singly or concert with others, may use of means or instrument of transportation and communication and interstate commerce. That sounds like they're moving drugs, right? But you're about to get sued for negligence in cybersecurity. So we ain't gonna read all that. I'm gonna put the link in the description at the end. But so when we ask high-ranking individuals to sign off on it, and that's a lot of times that's why they ask you these questions as a CIO, because you put in your name and really your personal money. Now, a lot of those guys got cybersecurity. A lot of those guys got umbrella policies. But when you sign that, you're personally at risk, right? So let's see. We're going to peruse through SolarWinds designs and sell software. SolarWinds and designs network monitoring. That was their thing, business as well as state, federal. They were selling their stuff to foreign governments. They were the 800-pound gorilla in there, right? Oh, wow. During the relevant period, SolarWinds had more than 300,000 customers, including 499 companies making up the top Fortune 500. Because the reason why is they got the FedRAMP, they got the state of approval. So everybody said, if we buy them, we're good. That was IBM in the 80s. If you bought IBM, you were good, right? So they were that, but everybody got, right? So I like how this be. Solar Browns and Brown, who signed off on that, the CISO promoted cybersecurity practice in a false public statement. And I'm going to stop there. That's a high level. We know they were negligent. They signed off. They lied on the 8K. They lied in public statement. But the sad thing, they told the truth in internal, when they were showing internal documents. When they were doing internal meetings, they like, oh, yeah, we toast. The one dude said, these vulnerabilities, we can't keep up, man. It's just too much, right? So they materially knew that they were doing a false statement. High risk, high reward. People don't take it seriously. Nah, facts, man. You don't take it seriously till your name shows up in a lawsuit, Cal. Facts. Let's see what my man got. They doing these 1,400 types of business off with their facts, man. Facts. He might be out. Unfortunately, when you are the boss, you are held accountable for those surrounding yourself with. It's important to have people to check their stuff and not just. No, that's a. But the sad point is, they were telling the truth, Calvin. That I showed. I don't know when you came in. They said, "Hey man, that's too many vulnerabilities. We can't keep up. This stuff is brittle." They told him. They was like, keep going. So they told him. So they told him what was happening. So once again, when you want to be a CISO, you want to be CISO or CIO or head of development at very large companies. I worked at companies where they had an Indian team, a United States team, a Brazil team. They were getting Oracle's got software programmers around the globe, right? So how do you sign off on that? How do you know you're good? Some guys, they have chief security information officers for each part of their activities in the globe. So how do you do that? Just the internal employees, Cal. Just internal. Some of their customers found out when they got hacked because I think they decompiled their code and they found the vulnerability code. One of their customers, which was a security firm, I think decompiled their code and showed them where the bugs were at. So now they just showed their internal employees. So I'm gonna hang out a little bit. I'm just wrapping it up. TGIF. I just want to hit like the high level of that. I think we talk about cybersecurity. We talk about getting hacked. But this is at the top of the pinnacle where you get hacked, you got a customer suing you, and the federal SEC now has got you in court. And you know they're going to hit you with a big ass fine, right? We know that's going to be some M's. I'm thinking about 300 million, 400 million. When you got 499 of the top 500 customers, you getting paid, and they're going to want some of that in the big fine to make restitutions to some of your customers that got hacked. So a lot of those companies got cyber insurance. So their cyber insurance is going to pay, but those cyber insurance companies are going to come to SolarWinds and try to get some of that money back from their cyber insurance. So they definitely getting sued. They're already getting sued by the SEC. You very rarely see the SEC sue companies unless they're very negligent at that point. At some point, your malicious decisions need to be properly. I think it's coming. I think the SEC is coming with the big paddle. I'm old school. I'm still paddling kids, man. I'm in 1986. I'm still switching kids, man. I'm old. So yeah, they about to get switched, Calvin. It's coming. It's coming. So once again, if you got any more questions, just drop them in the chat. Once again, everybody, TGIF. I hope everybody have a good weekend. I think I'm gonna be working this weekend. Studying for my CISP, I'm about to take. Oh my God, I'm too old to be studying. But now I got to get that CISP big dog one because when I was interviewing, I wasn't getting the amount of callbacks I had, so I talked to somebody. Long story short, when you do remote work, we know that's I'm calling it the Holy Grail. I enjoy remote work. I very rarely get dressed anymore. But if you look on Indeed, when you apply for a remote job, 300 people apply for the same job. So a lot of times they look for certain certs before they even look for your experience. So switch is not paddle. Yeah, I'm old school, man. The SEC suing at the top. I'll roll to the top because I'm wrapping this up. I'll put this in there. Yeah, Cal, at the top, you'll see the SEC right there. We just talked about it. SEC Exchange Plaintiff versus SolarWinds and Mr. Brown, because he was the CISO that signed off on it. Jury declined. So that's the complaint against, AK suing, the complaint against SolarWinds. So that's the suit right there. Yeah, I do consultations. If you go to it's professorblackops@gmail.com. Just reach out to me. I talked to somebody, GRC, young lady from Africa, the continent I thought was interesting. I talked to somebody from Australia the week before. Then I talked to somebody from Cleveland. So I'm just interested and I talk to people in foreign countries. But yeah, I'll definitely do that, Kyle. Just reach out to me. I check my email. Too, you can go to my about page on my YouTube, but it's Professor Black Ops, all one word, @gmail.com. Just hit me up and we can definitely hook some up. I use the same software, put it on private. You don't have to come up and we talk. I usually give everybody 15 minutes. No big deal. But yeah, that's the suit right there. The SEC was like, SolarWinds, you were negligent. You were lying. You were malcontent. You were misleading. That was some of their words. You were misleading. Cleveland is a bit. He's up on there, Cal. So yeah, I've talked, but it's interesting. I've peeked out that isn't it almost impossible to get hacked if you organize and outsource any type of IT resources? Besides, isn't it almost impossible to not get hacked if you organize it outside? I wouldn't say it makes it more difficult. A lot of times people think I'm elitist. I use big vendors. They get hacked, but Microsoft, they have some of the best security on the world, even though their patch Tuesday gets on my nerves. Oracle, AWS. But I would have put SolarWinds in there, to be honest, Aiken. But two, like we talked about, when you're doing big contracts, especially if you do over 5 million, their legal talk to their legal. So I've been in legal rooms where they're like, you got to indemnify us for 100 million if you get us hacked. If SolarWinds get us hacked, our DPA, go look at my last video, data processing agreement states in there, what's our super cap, right? So you're responsible. If we get $300 million and the SEC sue us because of your software and it's traced to your software, you owe us $300 million. And we got cyber insurance for that on top of your $300 million. We got our own cyber insurance, and we got to make sure you have $300 million of cyber insurance to be able to indemnify us for that hack, Aiken. So that's when I think you do your security checks, but that's when the legal department comes in. Once again, I've been doing that recently, and I think I'm in rooms with lawyers. Once again, we talk about super caps, indemnifications, what you're responsible for, what I'm responsible for. Here's our security exhibit saying you need to be doing these security features. If you're not doing logging and keeping it for 7 years, you're negligent. We're going to sue you for $100 million because you're going to get us hacked. So I think that's where you mitigate that from control, from what cybersecurity you're doing, and two, legally from a data processing agreement, Aiken. That's the two layers. And I'm just really getting into that data processing agreement because the stuff like this now, I just see it so much. So now I'm like, hey, what's our legal staff? What's our ramification? What's our super cap? What's our liability? What's as AWS? What's our shared responsibility? You're responsible for this, and we're responsible for X. So if your part gets us hacked, we get 100 million, right? We got that in contract, and we're gonna make sure you got cyber insurance for that. So I think hit me up, Aiken, if that makes sense. I'm on my soapbox. Sometimes I ride, but I think those two together now is the play, Aiken. And as my man say, that's what I'm gonna teach in my membership when I get that stuff. But now part of cybersecurity, and I started as pure technical. I was a programmer, then a DBA, then a web admin. So I always thought from a technical standpoint. But then we talk about GRC. The governance of that is the requirements. Right. So if I'm a programmer at DBA, what checks is GRC going to do to say we're secure? Right. So we're doing due diligence and due care. We're just not like these guys. We don't have 1,000 vulnerabilities and we're overwhelmed. What is our security program? The next part of that is what's legally are we have in place to make sure if we get hacked and it's not our responsibility because we do a due care and all that good stuff. What can we sue you for? And once again, what's your liability and what's your indemnification for us because you got us hacked? Oh, facts, Calvin. Facts. Nothing's 100%. Everything on the internet can be hacked. Fact. This is that user companies need to do due diligence. Facts. You need to do more than set it, forget it. Fact. They didn't even set it, man. They didn't even set it. They gave up and said we were overwhelmed. Right. So now facts. That's why you have to do a risk assessment every year, like Calvin said. That's why you have to, especially if you do an upgrade on a particular software to a higher version. A lot of times we try to do a security review on that because it upsets me a lot of times, which is good and bad. When a company gives you a higher version, you got all these new features. Did we review those new features for security? Sometimes I just want the old features, just make them secure and more. Don't give me new features. But every time I got an argument with Microsoft on this, I'm like, dude, every time I go into O365, you have new things I've never heard about. Who's done a security review on there? Can I force them to opt in? They said, no, they just make them available. I'm like, dude, then how can I be responsible for security if you just let my users opt in? I've got a set of services I've okayed for this agency to use, this company to use. If you add features I haven't vet, how can I be responsible from a third-party responsibility? So I'm arguing with Microsoft. Well, we add features. That's not what I'm asking, Microsoft. You need to let my people opt in. Because I need to, any feature or any service you put on my network, I'm responsible. And Mr. Brown, as the CISO, I'm giving him the risk to sign off on because PBO is not going to be responsible. His name's not going to end up on a complaint. So I'm saying, CISO, Chief Information Security Officer, this is all the stuff I found. These are the risks. This is what I don't think you can do. You got to accept these risks. Right? Because just like Calvin said, if it's on the net, you can be hacked. So we call that residual risk. There's always going to be some residual risk. You got to accept that, Mr. CISO. That's why you get $200,000. PBO don't make that. Now, PBO eat all right because he chunky, but I ain't making no $200K, Mr. CISO. That's you. Right? So that's where, like I said, over probably the last 2 years, I've really been hitting the legal part. Once again, if you go check out my last video, it's new procurement. First thing I start off with was classification and DPA. What does your contract say? Once again, what's our liabilities, indemnification? What's your cybersecurity? We're going to tell you how much cybersecurity you need to do business with us. Right? That's on a different level of security, right? That's why cybersecurity is so big, right? And as a senior cybersecurity, you got to understand the technology, the legal part of that, the GRC part of that, and the tech part of that. You at least got to understand it at a high level because at that level, I'm going to be talking to the CISO, the CIO, head of legal, senior director of legal, senior director, whoever's in charge of that business of logging. You got to be in there, right? So they're going to ask you questions. And it's not, I was like, I know all of that. Let me follow up on you. I got to do a little research because everything's changing so quick. Let's see what my man said. CISO should be making more coins than 200K with that. Now, that is true. That is true. That is true. But unless you at the Fortune 500 companies, they have the middle size, they're around 200K. But you're right. I never thought about that. But those two, if you're a CISO, you should have cyber insurance on yourself at a certain level. I knew everybody at the state. They had the state would cover them. And most of those people have personal attorneys. Now I do it. I do have umbrella policy, which is dirt cheap. I got a $3 million umbrella policy. Now I asked the guy from the FBI, what's the odds of me getting sued? I'm way down on. They said the odds are small, probably 2 or 3%. If you did something wrong, you were super negligent. But you always send it. He told me it's good. You always send it up to the CISO to sign off on. But yeah, but if you personally get sued like Mr. Brown, because you in the chain of stuff happens, are you covered? Are you at risk? Yeah, very little, very little. No, true. Make it to a head about to go job at facts, but it sounds like he probably getting paid though. I'm saying regular. Let me see if I can look up SolarWinds. I was gonna see if I can look up his salary. SolarWinds. Brown. What's Brown's salary? What was his first name? Let's see if I wonder if they have his salary in there. Now it just shows the case. He's probably making around. He's up there. I'm sure but you're right at the mid level. Yeah, but hopefully at the mid level you wouldn't have 18,000 customers and 499 of the top 500 Fortune 500 companies, Calvin, wouldn't be using your software. So you probably wouldn't end up in an SEC lawsuit. You wouldn't think. Let's see what Akis said. DB sound like a goodie saves up for the membership. Facts. But I'm giving too much up for the membership. Yeah, no, facts. But yeah, that data processing. And look up on my last video. We actually looked up SurveyMonkey. A lot of companies use SurveyMonkey. So I actually walked through their DPA and talked about where they talked about indemnification, liability, who's responsible for it. But yeah, we're going to keep that for the membership. But yeah, I looked over SurveyMonkey. One of my clients was a smaller company. I looked up SurveyMonkey, even though two was in the flat part of the network, not the secure part. It was an API, but like Calvin said, anything on the net could be hackable. So we kind of walked through That from a DPA perspective. Then from a risk assessment standpoint, looked at the top 3-4 attacks, which is ransomware, phishing, malware, and something else. So I always use those, and I do the risk assessment. What do you have internal? If SolarWinds drop malware on your, are you running FireEye? Are you running malware? Are you running zero trust? If it tries to move laterally, are you logging everything, right? So once again, we just did a high-level risk assessment. Check out my last video. I think I might show my channel some of the stuff I got in there. Keep dropping questions. We about to wrap it up. Trying to start off Friday on a high note. Let's see. That's me. Is that me? Oh, that's not me. Yeah, I'll do it next time. But yeah, so we'll go check out my channel. Let's see. I don't know. See if I can. Let's drop some more things in the chat. Hopefully everybody's having a good Friday. Man, I am dragging today. But yeah, that legal, once again, that DPA is a little different, little legal in there. So once again, just trying to touch on our parts of cybersecurity. Let's see if that's, oh, did I do that right? Oh, yeah. So that's kind of going over some things on my channel. Is the new CISA worth it? I don't know, to be honest. I'm doing a CISP, and that's at the same level of the CISP. I have to do a little research on that, to be honest. I'm a CISP guy, but I know of the CISA. It's on the 8570 DoD list. Cybersecurity from infrastructure. You could do that, and we reach out to me. We talk about it. We talk about hardening CIS. I think that'll get you in. I'm a STIG guy. DoD does STIGs. Understanding NIST. How does this work with architecture? One of the guys I hang out with, Network Bruh, he does networking. So I'll go over there. We talk about how would you harden a Cisco ASA, or their new, I think, is PowerFire, right? So if you had a hardening a Cisco router to make federal compliance, what is the requirements to do that, right? So that's kind of what I've been talking kind of to him about. And he actually, I want to talk to him. He worked for government agency talking about sieges type work. So we were going over the sieges. Don't know. Yeah, reach out to me. We can definitely chop it up about that. But that's my channel. Let's look at some of the things. That's us live right now. We're live. This is an older Security Plus. I think 3 is out. I think that's 2. But you go check it. I did it lecture style. Check out my man Tech G. He has a low cost on there. Master IT has some low cost stuff I thought was pretty good. That's me. Once again, I've got to learn cloud, so I did some lectures on when I was studying for cloud fundamentals. That's how I learned. But a lot of people don't realize I taught for 10 years at community college. I taught computer forensics. So I ran a computer forensics. So if you want to get in there, so I just touched on some points. I ran it like a class and a lecture. Compliance, GRC. That's really what my membership is going to be about. So here's a lot of the compliance videos. That CGIS right there is FBI, state police reports. I do a lot of IRS work, so I work with a lot of state agencies reporting to the IRS. There's NIST, Zero Trust is part of NIST. Purpose education, that's application security right there. FIPS, one night I was somebody reached out to me from a drug company, pharmaceutical company, real, not the street ones. So we talked about, it's called CFR 1211. That's hardening for a pharmaceutical company. NIST 853R4, that's really fed. CMC is DOD. That's their new hardening. 171 is actually CMC with less checks. Once again, that's private industry for non-critical information. Private personal security, that's the new hot thing, which is data privacy. So that's all in the playlist. So those check. I did some critical infrastructure. Zero Trust talks about lateral movement. We talked about DevOps. That's why they got hacked. How to harden your DevOps. Elastic Beanstalk, your code pipeline. Using DynamoDB as your application in your pipeline. How to make sure that's secure with DNS. So those are various things and various playlists I have available. In my normal videos, I try to do the hack of the day or the hack of the week. We talked about ACE, FAST, LinkedIn, the gas. They said Bluetooth, but I think it was RFID. Okta got hit, Discord. So everybody's getting that. 23andMe, Congress is asking for more papers from 23andMe. So I actually probably do a live on that once the government, well, I'll take that back. A senator asked for some papers. So I'm hoping he's going to get more information on that. Tamu, me and my goddaughter argue. She wants to order for Tamu. I told her don't do it. Caesar got hacked. We saw that. Keybank, but that's usually the hack of the week. Once again, though, this is the different playlists I have that you can go. And my membership's basically going to be on GRC. GRC basically is governance, and when you're doing federal work, you got to have governance over IT and cybersecurity. And most of those governance relate to one of these oversight agencies. I'm going to do high trust and HIPAA. Marcy's is Social Security services. So there's about 3 left I need to do. I want to hit on the major agencies. Then part of that is how do you learn GRC so you can apply for those jobs. If you go to Indeed and type NIST, you're going to have about 2,000 or 3,000 jobs come up, and probably 400 or 500 of those are going to be remote. So how do you get those skills to qualify to do federal compliance? But federal compliance is anything. I got to harden the database. I got to harden the infrastructure. I got to do, like they said, the development pipeline. That's got to be hardened, right? And all of that's paperwork, and that's a lot of paperwork, right, at a high level. So what does that look like, right? And what are you learning from that? Let's see. Man, what you can have my money. We can talk about it. Let's see. Make sure all your some sub PBRs. I appreciate that. But that's some stuff I'm learning. That's some stuff I want to get out. That's the stuff I want to bring to YouTube with my experience and help them. And my part, the Young Lions guy, I came here to help people like Keep It Techie. He's doing great stuff. Go check him out, right? I'm the OG. My job is to help everybody to make sure they're going in the right direction, right? So he has the Linux and the MySQL. So my job is, how do you harden MySQL, right? He's teaching you the basics. He's teaching you the fundamental. The next is, how do you harden MySQL? How do you make SQL CJIS compliant, IRS compliant, NIST compliant, FERPA compliant, right? Each one of those entities have their security, and at the security level, what checks do you do and what paperwork do you need to show to make sure that's happening at a federal level, right? That's the next bag. That's how you get those skills, right? That's how you transition into GRC, right? So what is GRC? I tell people, GRC, I give the requirements to the tech people. Like my man Cal, we're going to link up, so we're going to talk about infrastructure. I've been studying AWS. How do I take VMs that I spin up and harden them so they're NIST compliant? How do I take the load balancer and make sure that's NIST compliant? How do I take Route 53 to DNS and it fell over to a DRR site? That DRR site has to be NIST compliant to do federal work. Why do I do federal work? Tax money's infinite. Those consultants get paid. Booz Allen's in there, all those big consultants, they get their money from the Fed. So this skill can get you in the state, in the Fed, and actually transition you to a high-paying consulting job once you master those skills, right? So PBO is about done. PBO on the soapbox. I'm glad everybody joined me. But go check it out. Like I said, I got a ton of videos, tons of playlists. 2, go check my about, professorblackOps@gmail.com. Give me 48 hours to respond. PBO used to be an ex-professor. And 2, I was late on somebody. He just put a video. PBO, where you at? I hit him right back on email. I didn't check my email in 3 days. I got to do a better job, but I will get back with you. ping me. And two is sometimes I might overlook you or I might get busy. I might thought I'd respond. Just ping me. I'm not ducking you or diving. Like I tell everybody, I got 15, 20 minutes for everybody. So if you need me, just reach out to me. Definitely go check out my man, Keep It Techie, man. He definitely doing big. I always love his interviews. Like I said, he was the first guy to interview me. Kind of got me started on YouTube and on my YouTube life. So I always like to give him his flowers and his props. So go check my man out. Once again, ProfessorBlackOps@gmail.com. You see it, let's get it. You see the channel. I'm out. Everybody have a great weekend. OPBO tired. Appreciate the barbecue fun. I'm go there tomorrow. Get my tips. I appreciate Wayne Wallace. Check out the replay. And two, check out the last live one, which was procurement. And that's where I talk about DPAs. That's where I talk about risk assessment. That's where I talk about those layers to make sure you're secure, right? We talking technology and legal now. We're going to make sure if you mess up, we're going to sue you. Once again, Professor Black Ops, everybody have a great weekend. I'm out. I'm going to go have some steak tonight at dinner. Once again, I'm out. Professor Black Ops, everybody have a great weekend. I'm going to see you on these cyber security.